everyone to the first edition of the SDG Action Conclave 2020. And we are conducting today's session focusing on SDG Goal 3, that is good health and well-being. The goal aims to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Let me tell you something about the organization Youth Forum. Youth Forum is a project under Alexis Society, and our team consists of inspired young students and professionals who are solely interested in creating positive social impact by conducting research on policy issues, writing thought-provoking and insightful blogs, designing creative social campaigns, organizing life-changing events, and interviewing leaders and change-makers. As it is correctly said, that the youth are not only leaders of tomorrow, but also partners of today. So we at Youth Forum, a team of creative and encouraging individuals with a shared mission, a mission to change the world. So, through this first edition of the SDG Action Conclave, we wish to bring together change makers and the leaders from around the globe under the Act for SDGs campaign, Week of the United Nations. It will help to prepare an actionable agenda that will aid all in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals through all the initiatives and more. While the world leaders meet virtually at the United Nations General Assembly to take up the trying issues and give solutions to the tough times, we are trying to do a small part by taking action and raising awareness and initiating a better direction ahead. The turning point of the planet and the people need to know now. Let me tell you something about a guest speaker. Poonacha Machaiah is a successful entrepreneur and a business leader. He is passionate about conscious leadership and well-being. He is pursuing his mission of personal transformation and societal well-being, working alongside leading companies and industry thought leaders. Poonacha is also the co-founder of JIYO, a well-being platform that he created alongside internationally renowned physician and author-speaker Deepak Chopra, MD. He has also co-founded Beyond Performance Sports along with a team of global industry leaders who are continually exploring the boundaries of what is possible in sports performance. Deepak Chopra in Inner Space is a revolutionary new technology startup that he has co-founded that leverages grounding to reduce inflammation in both body and mind to restore whole health and well-being. He also holds a degree from the College of William and Mary and a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Engineering from the BMS College of Engineering in Bangalore, India. The next in line is our chair. Kunal Mandal is the co-founder of Space, a gamification company which uses quizzes and other games as a tool for personal growth and people engagement, and citybitesindia.com, a travel portal which helps travelers discover and book inspiring experiences provided by local experts. Currently, he is on a mission to teach curiosity as a life skill, increase awareness about sustainability, and empower young Indians to be more than they thought they could be. So, let me take forward the discussions while trying to arrive to solutions through this session on SDG number 3. I would like to hand over the conduct to Mr. Kunal.
Thank you so much, Ananya, and a very warm welcome to each and every one of you who is joining in and listening in. I have a very, very special guest for today's session, and he is Poonacha Machaiah. Poonacha, a very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kunal. Thank you, Ananya. I'm really excited to have this conversation today. I feel that you guys are the voices, so I'm probably going to do a lot more listening than talking, but it's always energizing to have these conversations, and it always gives me hope for a much better and brighter future. So I'm excited. Let's have a conversation.
Thank you, Poonacha. Let me begin at the sort of very beginning. Is you started as a digital entrepreneur, and then you moved into content building on the web space, and then sort of from there to healthcare game changer through JIYO, and of course now you are a warrior monk. So how have the journey been, and along the way, what are some of the key lessons that you have learned that probably our young audience today can benefit from?
Thank you. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about Warrior Monk, why I started it. So Warrior Monk, the warrior always helps the helpless, and the monk provides hope to the hopeless. So my vision for the world, that no one should ever be helpless or hopeless. And that's the vision of the Warrior Monk. I'm 50 years old. How did I get here? I think through a lot of mistakes. I've learned more from my mistakes than my success. So I think one of the things I always said, my failures have been the biggest teachers, and I've learned to adapt from it, take the best learnings. And I think I don't talk about post-traumatic stress. I talk about post-traumatic growth, right? So the glass is always half empty or half full. How do you want to look at it? So your attitude in the face of adversity is the most important learning in my life. So I think over the years, Kunal, you said I started off as a software engineer. I went into, I would say, Fortune 100 companies, startups, and over time, it's constantly innovating, right? And being constantly not satisfied with the status quo. And also breaking the norms, right? I think I've never wanted to kind of fit into a box. I've tried to constantly break it. And so in that way, also, I'm trying to find out who I am. It's like having a childlike curiosity. Like children always make mistakes. But I think for me, it's constantly asking why and why not. So the two important why is something happening, and why not do something about it? So that's kind of been the theme of my life. So in one way, I've not been, I would say, sticking to a certain domain or a certain industry or a certain role, because I kind of constantly would not want to innovate, right?
Yeah, I mean, you just summed it up for me, which is constantly asking why and why not. That's probably one of my biggest takeaway, and I hope everyone else also follows that. And we are sort of all aware of sort of unaffordability of adequate living faced by millions, specifically in this time of global crisis. Mm-hmm. And having said that, we have come across your work on global networking for collective action towards a healthier future. I mean, of course, I've followed the Weightless project, where you advocated this global movement of empathy, where one person's effort to weight loss adds to providing nutrition for another's much required weight gain. And I think it is sort of the very nexus we need in today's time. Can you elaborate on the same a little bit, alongside probably shedding a little bit light on how we can together make global healthcare coverage more effective and affordable? That's one of the discussions that comes up quite a lot these days.
Yeah, I think if I want to zero in today, I think the collective crisis we have as a world is mental health, right? If I look at the burden of mental health and stress and anxiety, because obviously we have COVID-19, which is, from a healthcare perspective, one of the biggest pandemics of our time. But following it is economic insecurities, financial insecurities. We've seen the farmer suicides in India. We've seen the migrant workers having an issue. But this is a global crisis, right? Every 40 seconds, we lose somebody to suicide. In this 30-minute conversation, 35 people would have died of suicide. So we really cannot no longer ignore the mental health crisis we have today. So what are some of the things we want to do? One of my biggest movements right now is never alone. And I believe, I joke about it, the world doesn't need Tinder. I think the world needs tender. We need tenderness. India is the land, we talk about Seva, Sangha, and Simran, right? Seva is our work, Sangha is our community. Where are the communities today? Right? Today, we are super connected, but very lonely, right? We talk about the TikTok suicide and things like that. Why is the young generation, if you look at the United States, the leading cause of death among young adults is suicide, 10 to 24. Why is that? Right? So the question we got is, why is this happening? And why not do something about it? Right? So one of my biggest passions right now is to address the mental health epidemic of our times. So the most simple thing is connection. How can we get more connected? How can we get more grounded? How can we never be alone? It is ironic that our friends are suffering from this. We talk about what happened in Mumbai, Sushant Singh Rajput, right? So he was a very famous actor, but why? Why are we letting our fellow friends and family suffer? So I think as a generation, we need to come together, right? We need to use the tools within us and to really bring. I talk about love in action, right? As a campaign we launched. How can we use love as the primary driver to connect people? So I think if you look at the global crisis from a health and wellness perspective, I'm very focused on mental health. And if I want to change a needle, I believe resiliency is very important. So why is it? So we talk about resiliency, and people know about resilience. Resilience is about the ability for us to bounce back from adversity, right? And I'm going to share with you all three things on adversity. I call it the ABC approach. A is attitude. What is your attitude? Do we have an attitude of gratitude? Right? I complained I had no shoes until I saw a man who had no feet. Right? Can we teach our young our about attitude? So is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? So what is the attitude to life we are going to have? Right? B is belief. What is your belief? Today we have a huge trust crisis. So people don't believe in God, spirituality, nation states, CEOs don't believe in anything. So when your friend says something to you, everything falls apart. But we got to believe in the belief of impermanence, right? So even though what I'm going through in my life today might be the deepest, darkest winter of my life, there is going to be spring, there is going to be summer. As the sun sets, the sun is going to rise. So do you believe in impermanence? And the last part is the C. What is the choice you're going to make? Is what you're going to do next going to help you or hurt you? Help others or hurt others? So the biggest cure for loneliness, which is a disease of our current time, people are lonely, is to be in service, right? And being in service is the biggest cure. So what you all are doing today is to be of service. When you be of service, somebody is dependent on you. So that's kind of my high level perspective, really creating a movement called Never Alone. I've said a lot, but hopefully that sums it up.
No, that's really great, and I've been following the Never Alone campaign as well, and I've also posted, a couple of times with your hashtag because I follow you on Instagram as well, and those are really, really, sort of admiring, and this brings me to checking out, and you have written this book for children.
Right. Yeah.
If I'm not wrong, it's called "I Am Resilient."
Yeah.
And I noted a quote there, which is that resilience is an attribute which fosters overall well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And you speak of its importance in being happy, joyful, and peace.
Right.
So in times like now, when we see a spike in reported suicide rates, as you have said, how do you think we can foster the importance of resilience for well-being more and more amid people, and especially among children? And if you can tell us a little bit about the book.
So this is the book, right? So I Am Resilient. So and I call it the Warrior Monk. That's my inspiration is Panchatantra, right? Amar Chitra Katha. So that's why this boy is a brown boy. I kind of modeled him. I loved the Panchatantra. I love reading comics, and I think through comics I've learned so much in my life, right? And I loved Mandrake. I loved Tarzan. I loved Tintin. And I look at children. How do you teach children? And bullying is a big problem, right? Bullying And I think children, these kind of things really create very strong mental, I am not good enough, I am not beautiful, I am fat, I am ugly, and all these kind of things come into your mindset. And I really wanted to share with children how beautiful they are, that every child is a superhero. I wanted to change how we look at education, not teaching them maths, physics, science, but say, Kunal, this is your superpower. Ananya, this is your superpower. And for the rest of your life, you try to find that superpower, right? And growing up, I know I grew up not knowing my superpower. I think 50 years, if you look at all the things I've done, I'm trying to find my superpower, right? And I stumble upon it. So one of the things was that when children are really, really small and they're really little, they made fun of, hey, ye to chota hai, ye to, And I think if you look at these, things, you kind of make our stories also make fun. This ki bibi choti, this ki bibi moti, all those kind of songs we have in Bollywood, right? But they have long-lasting implications on your self-worth. And I wanted to improve children's self-worth. So I want to say, if you're small, if you're like an ant, ants can carry 3 times their body weight, right? Now that's the strength of ants. So you can be like an ant. So imagine a child can put an ant sticker and really feel good about themselves. So that's really through the power of storytelling. I wanted to bring in how you can kind of work through and build resilience in yourself. And I think that's very important, because when we look at adversity, you need to have hope. So what we need to give the world today is hope. But what is hope? Hope says that tomorrow is going to be better than the present. That's good. But the most important thing, that you and I have the power to make it so, right? Otherwise, it's just a wish. If I just say tomorrow is going to be better than today, it's just a wish. But when I say, but I have the power to make it so, now that becomes a very powerful paradigm. And as young adults, as children, we need to understand that. We need to internalize that. And Viktor Frankl said it really well in The Man's Search for Meaning, right? It doesn't matter, I'm not quoting it exactly, that it doesn't matter what the situation is, it doesn't matter what you're going through today, that you always have the power to choose, right? That we always have the power to choose in any situation. And as a choice, we can always choose love. Right? So anyway.
Yeah, that's so lovely to hear that, every time when we have a choice, choose love over anything else. I really, really love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And, one of the things that comes to mind because we're talking about, young people, and one of the things that discussed quite a lot is attention time, right? And and we're of course talking about content in the form of comic books and all. An average human attention time was, in 2013 was 8 seconds apparently, and I was reading somewhere, and it says that it's now 33% drop has happened, in 2020, 2020, and it's sort of much lower than the attention span of a goldfish apparently. So, and an average Gen Z individual in estimated to check their phone at least 120 times a day. Outdoor games have walked inside in a way, with plethora of options. I mean, video games with great graphics and user experience. So as a tech entrepreneur, where you have always tried to use technology to bring about change, my question to you would be that, how do we really use this, sort of online offline interaction through technology to promote both physical and mental well-being in a much tech-induced world today?
Yeah, so I think this is a hard problem, right? So one of the things I would say is that it is the future, because people are doing it. It doesn't matter how much we fight it. The Natya Shastra was written by Bharata, I think, over 100 years, right? Can you think of a book being written over 100 years today? Probably impossible, right? There's no business plan or even nation states running countries or elected officials going beyond 5 years. So as a collective evolution, right, as a species, we are moving towards this. The question we got to ask ourselves is, how do we cope with it? Right? I don't think we can change how media is going to be consumed. Right? Media is going to be snacked. Right? Encyclopedias are gone. We're going to do the go. It is going to happen. It is happening. And being a technologist, I'm constantly on my phone. I'm constantly checking it. But what I think we need to do is to work towards some amount of balance, right? So when you look at well-being, I talk about the 6 pillars of well-being, right? So one is nourish. How do you eat properly, right? So what is your diet, your nutrition? Because between the gut and the brain is the vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve. It actually regulates your biology, your well-being, right? So what food do you eat? So working towards a whole food, plant-based diet is the recommended norm, right? Especially based on our lifestyle today. So because serotonin production, dopamine production is in the gut. So what you put into your gut is so important. That's nutrition. And we need to educate people on, make them more aware. The second one is movement, right? Exercise, getting out. So it doesn't mean you got to be running, or working on a gym and doing all things, but moving constantly. In India, we used to walk everywhere. No longer do we walk anymore. So movement is very important. The third pillar of well-being is healthy emotions. How do you regulate emotions, right? And that's a very important attribute. Emotional regulation is not something we understand. We don't talk about it. So we need to talk about that. The fourth one is having some kind of a mind-body practice, prayer, faith, whatever that is. You got to have some kind of practice, devotion, something which helps you. The fifth one is sleep. Sleep is very, very important. It's almost nutrition and sleep are probably the most important things we're doing. Today we are on Google Meets and Zoom and all that kind of thing. So the blue light is actually affecting your circadian rhythm. So if you're working a lot, you got to basically use blue light blocking glasses. And if you don't sleep well, it's a vicious cycle. Your metabolism is kind of impacted, your hormones are impacted, your decision making is impacted, your stress goes up, your cortisol level goes up, and that's the problem. And the last pillar of well-being is connection with community and nature. It is really connected with nature, walking bare feet, connecting with nature. Nature is healing, and we don't do enough of that anymore. And community, right? So in the world of physical distancing today, I think the world is losing intimacy. People don't hug anymore. Forget about it, right? So I don't know, as you guys, as young generation, what is intimacy today, right? How do you all hold hands and be intimate? So I think there is something going on, and we need to acknowledge it, that as a collective generation, we are going through some unprecedented times, understanding intimacy, understanding relationships. So I would urge for you all to look at some creative solutions where the youth of India can come together, right? I'm every time I'm shocked with what happens, violence against women, right? What happened in some parts with rape and domestic violence and all that. I'm looking to the youth to come up with a creative solution, right? So that is, I think we have to undo what previous generations have done, and we need to look at this collectively.
Yeah, that's such a great message, Poonacha. Thank you. And everyone who is listening in, and especially the entrepreneurs and innovators out there, there is a problem for us to solve. So think about that and see how we can more innovatively come up with solutions which redefines in many ways our relationship and
In
the
India, I
way
think
we are going to interact humans with each other.
no, I was saying like in India, especially if you look at that as an audience, I call it CBS, right? Cricket, Bollywood, and spirituality, right? Very important. It is important for our sports stars. It's important for media. It's important for our leaders to really take on these important agenda items of well-being. And how do we come together, right? And I think we all have to kind of really look at addressing that. And whatever I can do, I'm willing to help.
Thank you so much, Poonacha. At this point, let me bring another piece of the puzzle, which is, sort of we have seen a lot of, world has been sort of grappled with diseases of all kinds, and that includes communicable diseases from SARS-1 to, in the beginning of the century to Ebola to swine flu, and of course the COVID crisis now. And it has sort of, illness in many ways leads to social disruption and immunity lapse at a large scale. And you have said that chronic disease are a lifestyle construct.
Mhm.
And so my question to you would be that how do you think we can go forward and build our immunity stronger to make ourselves better fit in the coming times and now, or as you put it, more resilient in terms of our health, probably?
So yes, I always say that lifestyle is the most important thing, right? So let me kind of tell you 7 ways to reinvent your body. So if you want, Ananya and Kunal, you want to reinvent your body and really be able to, diseases are going to come and go. This is not going to be the last time. There's going to be life stress, anxiety, SARS, COVID-19, COVID 2021, and beyond. We don't know. They say the glaciers are melting in Tibet, and there are basically 20 different variants of probably COVID coming out. So we don't know what we don't know. But what do we know? So we know, the first thing we know, that the body is a process, not a structure. That's, if you understand that, that means every single part of your body is changing every day. Your stomach linings are changing, your skin is changing, your skeletal system is changing, which basically means that you have the ability to, your body is malleable, right? So that's one thing, you're not fixed, right? Second thing, that your body is an information energy field. It is constantly giving you information. The question is, are you in tune with it? When you put an ECG or EKG, you say, oh, I can read the reading, but it's giving you information energy. How do you tune into it? The third one is that your thoughts, emotions, environment affect your well-being, right? And if you live in a polluted thing, your biology is changing. So that's called epigenetics, right? Very important aspect. The fourth area is you can rewire your brain. That's neuroplasticity, right? It's not fixed. You can rewire your brain. It's not. The fifth one, only 5% of disease-related gene mutations are fully penetrant. That means 95% is lifestyle based, right? So chronic low-grade inflammation is the precursor to all disease. When two people are in love, and say, I love you, my zindagi de dunga, this, that, and all that. Everybody wants to, can cross the Ganga and, climb the Everest and all that, and do all things when they're in love. When two people are breaking up, the same 2 words, 3 words, I love you, create stress, anxiety, cortisol, headache, flu, all that kind of thing, right? Thoughts change our biology. The most important thing, awareness is key to transformation. So we need to understand that we need to become more aware. So for me, reducing anything you can do to reduce inflammation in the body, an inflamed gut, inflamed brain, inflamed society, right? So reducing, that means eating foods which are non-inflammatory. That means thinking thoughts which are non-inflammatory. You then create a society which is not inflamed, right? That's at least my aspiration and wish.
Cheers to that non-inflamed society. I think it's a great aspiration, and we should definitely be able to get there with all of us bringing together and following the frameworks that you suggested. There are quite a few interesting models.
I'll give an example, right? If you're in a bar hanging out, you're eating a lot of meat, spicy foods, drinking a lot of beer, your decision making is inflammatory. You get upset, you get angry. So inflamed gut, your receptors to the brain are inflamed. And what happens next? Get into a fight, right? You disrupted harmony. So just think about the chain reaction. Your food, your mental, you created something disruption. So if you just think about, we are intrinsically connected. I right now might not be physically present, but I'm very much connected with the three of you all, and so much with everybody around me, right? We think our distances separate. So they don't separate us. We're very connected. Our thoughts are so important.
Thank you. I mean, that example would definitely quite resonate with the young audience. And, one of the things I remember, that you believe in the gene expression being influenced by, thoughts, emotions, relationships, social interaction, and environment. And of course, you partly mentioned that as well. And I also was, since I was following you for quite some time, you even mentioned this 10-facet approach of well-being, which inclusive of sort of mind-body connection, sleep, love, relationship, movement, and finance, etc., that you talked about. And I of course, I was there when JIYO was being built, partly.
Right.
And I saw the parts of the philosophy and how it was being built and things like that. And it was really amazing to see it in action and have grown so much. So my question is about that. Like, tell us a little bit about JIYO and sort of in general importance of well-being in lifestyle. Like that's what I think JIYO has tried to do, that it has given you content and frameworks and easy to do things, and sort of inspired you to bring that wellness back into your lifestyle in many ways. So please tell us about that journey and sort of anything that has come as a learning from that.
So I think if I look at JIYO when I started it, you're absolutely right. I said personal transformation, societal well-being, right? It's actually from a non-dualistic word, Vedanta perspective, aham brahmasmi, right? So if you don't want to try to change the world, you change yourself, right? And Gandhi said that, I think so. Be the change you want to see in the world, right? So I'm a big believer in that. And I said, you know what? We have to first change ourselves. If Poonacha doesn't change, forget about other people. But look at change. I looked at it more from a very integrative perspective, right? So people say, I want to go get six-pack abs. But having six-pack abs, but not having love in your life, what's the big deal, right? And if you have a lot of love in your life, but your bank balance is looking terrible, how does it work? So life is balance, right? So for me, it is all about restoring balance. So physical well-being, emotional well-being, relationship well-being, career well-being, financial well-being, right? So look at well-being, look at all these facets. That's what JIYO strive to do. And now it's part of the Chopra Center, Chopra Global. It's part of integrated back into the organization. So with Dr. Chopra, we had a vision. And that's how it all came together. When I met him and we started JIYO together, our goal was to reach 1 billion people, to create a joyful, energetic body, a loving, compassionate heart, a reflective and alert mind, and lightness of being. So we said if we can do that, we can make a difference in the world. The most important thing, joyful, energetic body. If you have a back pain, forget about meditation, fix the back pain, right? Once you have a good back, love and compassion. Then reflective, alert mind. Then who am I? All the existential questions of life. So that was the journey. And it's continuing today. I think once I've got done with JIYO, I am right now 50. And if I look at my world, my life right now, I'm looking at how do I transform and be a contribution to the world at large. And that's my work for the Chopra Foundation, is really looking how do we create a peaceful, just, sustainable, and joyful world. Right? That's really the aspiration of the future. And then my second passion is technology. So I have a Wellbeing Tech as my technology company now, where I'm always looking at how can I use a better mousetrap to help people do things better. So I just launched an app as of this week. It's a microservices app called Gabble, Gabl. Right? It's give, ask, borrow, and love. And you can download it actually. And in fact, I haven't even gone online and shared it. It's basically in a 20-kilometer radius, or 20-mile radius, help people. So if you're living in Bangalore, it doesn't matter what I'm doing in San Diego. So give. I have extra tomatoes at home. Give it to my neighbor. It's going to get spoiled. Ask. You know what? I need help for somebody to walk my dog today. I'm not feeling well. Ask your neighbor. Borrow. I'm going on a bike trip to Mysore. Can I borrow a camera? And the most important thing, love. So the concept of a shared economy, creating communities of Sangha, is so important. I think today the youth have to come together and really create these intimate communities. And there's one thing you can ask me. I'll say, I pray that we create some intimacy in our social networks. It's not so much about liking and sharing, but really getting more intimate, right? Looking at somebody next to you and talking to them. And that's really what the world needs today.
It reminds me, in one of our past conversations, you've told me about how Coorg was, it's about this sustainable ecosystem that always existed between society, community, and nature. Right. And also this culture of sharing.
Right.
Once again, so that our audience knows a little bit about it and how it has inspired you.
Yeah, I come from
I think Gabble is sort of has.
Right. So I think I come from a very small village in India. It's a small district, Kodagu district, Coorg. Our claim to fame is creating athletes and generals, Field Marshal, Karyappa, General Timaya. So we have legendary warriors. But what the land really taught me is community, right? In fact, people don't lock their houses in Coorg. You can walk anywhere, they always share. You can go to any house, they will serve you food. And it really inspired me that we worship nature, right? It wasn't even God; it was water, Kaveri, and and we also realized that this land, our Punya Bhumi or Janma Bhumi, is our land, Kaveri, was providing the through water, sustained all of us. So we always had a thing called Devara Kadu, which was the God's forest. So how much of you cultivated, you kept some amount of land for God. It was almost, I think of it like social fencing, and this kind of ecological conservation was built in. So I'm deeply, I would guess, through just being of that birth, I was always said we got to always tread the world lightly, give more than you have taken, right? Keep a very little footprint in the world. So these are some of the things which I think epigenetically have been passed on. I started a documentary which I have not finished, and hopefully after COVID, when I come back to India, I'll finish it. It is called God's Forest, like how Coorg, through this thing of Devara Kadu, kept this kind of ecological preserve. So nobody entered the forest or the God's forest. So what they did, they kept the biodiversity, the flora, the fauna was not being touched. And hopefully, but that's changing. Why are we having flooding in Coorg? It's not because, it's not because the rains have increased. Rains have always been the same. It's just that our biological, our eco is kind of changed. We don't really do any paddy farming anymore, right? So what's happening now, the water is not being retained, it's not being absorbed. And that's why water is flowing out faster. And that's a disaster. It is really a disaster. When we actually build railways across the Western Ghats, when you try to take electric lines across the Western Ghats, you are disturbing the flora and fauna. And we've borrowed the forests from our future generations. So it's not like it's not mine or yours to really enjoy. It's what otherwise we'll be seeing the tiger in VR and AR, right? So we need to kind of, what we also learned during COVID, that if we just let go for about 2 or 3 months, nature heals very quickly. I heard in Chandigarh we could actually see the Dollar range, right? So I think the nature heals very quickly. So we need to get out of the way.
Well, we need to probably get out of the way, as you said, and I hope that happens sooner than later. And we can probably keep nature as it is going forward, since a lot of things have sort of healed and come back in many ways. You have often stated that happiness today has become a competition, but it is joy that we should really seek.
Yeah.
You also speak of a constant conflict in people today as a model of chronic conflict and a model of conformance and comparison. So I will bring the sort of warrior and monk back into the discussion and say, because I read that it's a transformative retreat for men and women, and how that can contribute in fixing probably the lost puzzle, the solution, sort of to the model of distress and constant conflict that
right. So I think,
us.
As you're talking about, it's like, if you go to narrative, we talk about Shiva Shakti, right? The yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine. Look at the masculine world. Energy is, I think, the world of the past. I call it the military strategy: defeat, decimate, destroy, SWOT analysis. If you look at the feminine energy, shared economy. Let's cooperation, not competition. Let's collaborate. So when I look at the world, I look at the feminine archetype, and it's very different. There is feminine archetype in the male too, which is caring. We need to look at this very differently. Even in the business today, our language needs to change from share of the pie to we have enough, right? Value innovation, the blue ocean strategy versus the red ocean strategy. So business leaders need to also think about how can we collaborate? How can we all coexist? So that's one thing. That's where the warrior monk comes in, the yin and the yang. One of the I would say the person who has big influence in my life is Jiddu Krishnamurti, very famous philosopher. And his sentence is what I always quote in his book called Truth is a Pathless Land. And he says, comparison and conformity lead to conflict. A mind without conflict is a spiritual mind. And what it basically means is that today we're always comparing, somebody got a job in Amazon, somebody got a job in Microsoft, somebody got a job in Google, they got a so-and-so joining bonus, they have this car, they have this paycheck, and they got this, they got that, constantly comparing, right? And conformity. I got to be this way, I got to act this way, I got to dress this way. And that creates conflict. And if you have no conflict, that's the most spiritual mind you can have. So children inherently don't have conflict. You know, when you're probably a young boy, you're probably running around without wearing pants, shirt, running around naked. They say, "Ye to nanga hai, this, that," made fun of you, and then you're wearing pants, shirt, jacket, blazer, and you're Indian, this Kunal Mandal, Poonacha Machaiah, then you're screwed for the rest of your life because now you're fitting this model, right? The goal is how can we live in a world, and by the way, this is work in progress. I'm every day working towards it, right? But I somehow believe that is the salvation. When I was growing up, I struggled with it. I also went through my challenges. Engineer, doctor, lawyer. You have to be this. My parents said engineering, you have to be this. Not holding anything them against that. That's what they learned. That's what they knew. But now I have an option to change, right? There's never too late. And I think that is really, I think that's really my thing today. It's constantly evolving, constantly pushing the boundaries, always asking why and why not. Right? In fact, I always had this idea that if I ever started a school, it'll be called the why not school. Right? Children, the first question they ask is why. Second, they should say why not. And then the project for the rest of their life is to figure it out.
Please let me know once you started. I would love to go back to school for sure. I mean, the amount of whys I have asked in my school, and for that number of times my parents have been called, or number of times I probably asked that to my mother. She had to literally bribe me with this Amar Chitragatha series of books to shut me up and say that don't ask me. All the answers that you're looking for, you'll probably find here. So that's how I grew up in my curiosity, and that probably will bring me to my next question to you. That you have, of course, said that a lot of the times as an entrepreneurial journey or otherwise, that this childlike curiosity, this is probably one of the most important skills of the 21st century, that we don't weigh in enough. Right. So what I would ask you is, you have used this tool all your life to do different things and grow along. What would be your suggestions, like how we can probably instill this in the next generation as a skill so that they can keep using it all the time to benefit from it?
So I don't know, if I'm not an authority on this, I can only talk about my life, right? So I don't know if that's this is what worked for me. Like I said, truth is a pathless land. Some people say, Poonacha, you're doing too much. Why don't you do one thing? Because typically that's how most businesses are done, right? You just do one thing. Bruce Lee said, I don't worry about a man who knows 10,000 kicks. I worry about a man who practiced one kick 10,000 times, right? But for me, and being who I am, I like diversity. I like doing multiple things. I like figuring it out. If I was probably born later on, and now they're probably diagnosed with ADD, right? But I like that variety is a spice of life. That works for me. So basically what happens is that I really want to know why, and I want to kind of figure it out. Then I want to kind of figure out something else. I read 10 books at the same time. I don't read one book and finish it. I read a theme. I read about resilience, and I go to about 15 different books and see what do they say about resilience, right? And I pick a different theme. I read about loneliness, and I read 20 different chapters in different books about loneliness. That works for me. But I think in there, maybe there is something about a beginner's mind, right? When you look at a beginner's mind, you're trying to doing this market research. For me, my life is constant market research, right? I'm trying to always figure out how can I be better? And every day is an experiment. I don't know. But for me, I think it is still work in progress, right?
Thank you. You probably put it the right way. And that's what probably I am going through these days, that how can I be better every day and every hour and every second? And that was probably leading me to my path of knowing who I am truly. And thank you so much for sharing that with our audience as well. Before I go to Ananya for the next set of questions, I have one last question for you here, is that you have spoken of the importance of shifting from net worth to self-worth multiple times. You told this to me in our second meeting. I clearly remember. I would like you to tell this to our audience as well.
Right.
And keeping that context, uh, where do you see the future of health and well-being for the planet?
Hmm. Okay, so there are two questions, and they're pretty powerful questions. So, so I tell people, if I use an example, so you can see this. This is one end of the handkerchief, right, or napkin, and this is called the time you were born, right? And this is the other end of the napkin, the time you might exit this earth, right? If you have control over one of them, you have control in life, right? You have no control of when you're going to be born. You have no control of the time you're going to exit. The mode, you don't know. It's going to happen someday. You don't know the mode, you don't know the time. So when you don't have both, you have no control, right? You really don't have control. You think you have this illusion of control. But the only thing you have is control of this moment, present moment awareness. That is it. This moment is a present, it is a gift. So you have to be present in this moment. That is the only thing you have. So then why make all these huge dreams? If I asked you, Kunal, do you know your great grandfather? Do you know your great grandfather? Imagine if your great grandfather was sitting right next to you right now, and he says, my great grandson doesn't know who I am. You know how bad you'll feel? In 2 generations, we've lost. Yet we get caught up in this creating this net worth and all these kind of things when we should be sharing. We should be giving. When you're born, somebody gives you a bath. When you die, somebody gives you a bath. In between, you get caught up with the ego, right? So my goal is always your self-worth. Who am I? What is it? Net worth is such a relative number. You cannot take your bank balance and go to the next gen. You just don't know, right? So why get caught up in it? So be of service today. It doesn't not when you become a millionaire or a crorepati or whatever. Even if you have 10 rupees, you can be of service today. Even if you have 100 rupees, 1,000 rupees, 1 lakh, whatever, start your service today. For me, what has helped me in my life, in my deepest, darkest moments, being of service has been my biggest savior. So that I do know quite well. So try to be of service. So that's why I always say your net worth is not your self-worth, right? I always say, don't confuse your selfie, yourself with your selfie. You're two different things, right? So constantly figure out who are you versus a selfie. And this is once again work in progress. I mean, you guys are so young. At 50, I'm still figuring it out. So I mean, this is once again life, right? And you asked me about the planet. So I think I talked about the genome, epigenome, microbiome, and the planetary biome. Everything is intrinsically connected. So I believe that we got to tread lightly, right? And make conscious decisions. Overconsumption is killing this planet. So there's enough in the world for every man's need, except for one man's greed. Greed is killing this planet. So let's go tread lightly.
All right. On that note of tread lightly, let me see if Ananya is going to tread lightly on you. Ananya is a younger voice that I'm going to bring in now, and she's a young student and also a member of our global volunteer community. And she has a couple of questions for you. So, Ananya, please introduce yourself and ask your questions.
Hi, I'm Ananya. I'm just 18 right now and I just graduated from high school. And due to COVID, my college plans have all been messed up for now. I really love to cook, like it's my happy place, and I also love to sing. I actually want to work towards education for all, the sustainable development goal, that education for all. And I have been working on a few projects myself, and I would want to work on the same path in the future. Uh, Also, I have a few questions for you right now. So, we came across the statistics that every 40 seconds someone commits suicide, and in our generation there is a lot of anxiety and depression has been increasing over the time. One of the things that I have come across is that people are afraid to reach out for help, and when they do, they are also sometimes made fun of. So, how do you like how can we destigmatize this thing that reaching out for help or reaching or mental health issues like anxiety or depression?
It's a probably, you're 18, but you're asking the question which has taken me all my life to figure out. First of all, congratulations for asking me this question. And I'm really proud of, listening to people like you. At 18, I wasn't thinking about this. So I'm so happy to look at this generation asking these kind of questions because, first of all, if you look at a Google search, if you look physical fitness, you'll see images of six-pack abs. If you look at mental health or mental fitness, you'll see people doing this or dark images. And and if you say mental health, ye to pagal hai, and then you dismiss people because you know what, you can go to a doctor for flu and it's fine. But if you go to a doctor if you're stressed or anxious, or that's not okay, it's mental health. You can go to a cancer screening center with cancer diagnostic, but you say mental diagnostic, it's not a good thing. So we have to first change narrative. We got to change the stories. We got to change the movies. We got to change. I know Deepika Padukone started Live, Love, Laugh as a foundation. I'm actually planning to do the Never Alone Summit in India after Diwali, focusing on mental health, right? It's going to be India-wide, every state, every language is going to be represented. So we have to change through storytelling. What is mental health? That's the first one, right? Because mental health is like getting a cold. We are collectively going through a depression right now as a world, right? We all have to admit it. The second thing is we need deeper relationships. And I think we need really relationships which kind of go a bit deeper. I've struggled through my life with being, who do I share things with? Because if I'm doing this, I'm going to get judged, right? And in India, growing up, it was the whole thing, grown men don't cry. I mean, that's a taboo. Like if I'm a big guy, 6 feet, I'm a tough guy. I can beat people up. But if you cry, it's a bad thing. So we got to really destigmatize what is being. I mean, how do you express emotions? How do you label emotions? For a country which came up with Natya Shastra and Navarasa and emotions, how have we forgotten that? So we got to bring back this conversation, emotional, a conversation. It's not about social. I think when I was in school, I went through social studies, I think moral science. I think I went to moral science. But giving label on emotions is very important. We go through physical education in schools, right? PE, PT class. What about mental class? Because that is actually way more relevant than physical training. So we need to kind of change curriculum. We say you want to be in education, that is the future. We got to redefine the curriculum. As much as it's physics, science, and all that, we need mental health as a curriculum. So that's, I think, starting at the school level, right? Starting at teachers, parents, everybody needs to be, go through this education on mental health.
Thank you so much for your answer. And I hope that our generation tries to bring this back again. I actually had another question. So, right now, you quoted that you should not, like you said, that we should not confuse ourselves with a selfie.
Right.
But we end up confusing others with their selfies on social media. And like we know that in the current time there are editing apps, there are photo shoots, photoshops and everything available for people, and what is shown on social media isn't always very true.
Right.
However, it ends up taking a mental toll on young children like us. So how can we promote stuff like body positivity, or how can we overcome the mental trauma we go through after going through different social media posts at time?
So I think it's a complex topic, right? So because there's so much of pressure today on social media, like my life is so perfect. I mean, I have the most happiest life on Facebook or Instagram that people think that is who you are. In India, I said, and specifically in India, I talked about CBS, right? Because so much of people look up to their brands, right? If you look at Fair and Lovely, like, fair skin, like, why do we have that? Like, what is the ethos of the brand, of an ambassador, to talk about fair skin? Like, we should talk about that level, right? We start with that. Like, doesn't matter how dark you are, how tall you are, how this you are. Who are you? right? Who are you? I mean, that is in our matrimonial sections we have there, right? The whatever, I want a girl who's tall, fair skin, IAS officer, this officer, that. So we got to change the narrative. That's one, right? The second thing, we have to also change this thing of perfection. So when you look at film and cinema, this is why I think storytelling is so important, right? What is called good looking? What does that mean? I don't understand that, right? Because there's a stereotype. If I say, who's your favorite movie star, right? Somebody will say it looks like Hrithik Roshan or this or that, and now what happens? You set that story to act of this is what good looking is. This is what it is. No, let me kind of stick to that story. That's why I said comparison and conformity lead to conflict. A mind without conflict is a spiritual mind. So it is going to take a lot of work. We have to undo. So I had this conversation with Tinder. You swipe left and swipe right. You're dismissing a person, right? Just by their looks. It takes a couple of generations to undo that damage of technology. So you at 18, you're asking these questions, and that is hope. That you all will actually ask these questions like, why? But why not do something different? Why keep doing the same thing over and over again? It is a definition of insanity. It's like rearranging the deck chairs of the Titanic. It is going to sink. Why rearrange the deck chairs? Same thing with social media. It's not about Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or Tinder. It's about redefining conversation, right? How do you redefine conversation?
I genuinely hope that our generation understands this in a deeper sense. And since we are the leaders of tomorrow, we will have to change the narrative over time. Uh,
The very fact that you're sitting up late at night having this conversation with me, a much older guy, and asking me these kind of questions, I feel very hopeful today.
Thank you so much. So, since I mentioned that we are seen as the leaders of tomorrow, and personally, I want to go into the arena that I can create an impact in the world. So, how can I, like, three suggestions for our generation to get into social, like, sustainable development goals, or how can we work personally towards the sustainable development goal three, that is well-being and fitness.
I think the first one is okay. I'll give you three things: authenticity, integrity, higher purpose. Always have an authentic goal, right? And if your authentic goal is that I want to make a difference in the world in well being and let's say mental health, have the integrity to follow up with it. That means I think Kunal probably knows. I always used to hire people in my team. I call them, they have to have a PhD. And my PhD stood for passion, hunger, and drive. And the third one, higher purpose. It is not about you, it's about a bigger vision, right? When you do this authenticity, integrity, higher purpose, you never stop dreaming, right? You will get there. But once again, what is time? Time is a man made concept, right? You start the journey, somebody else can complete it. You don't have to have the ego that has to happen with me. Love without attachment to outcome. Serve without attachment to outcome. Attachment to outcome creates dukkha or suffering.
Thank you so much, Ananya, for your questions, and thank you so much, Poonacha, for such a beautiful and insightful session. It is always very hard to sum up as host after such an insightful session. I cannot possibly, sort of bring it into a capsule, but I will try my best. And a few of the things that you've said and is going to stick with me and hopefully with everyone else who is joining in and listening in. First of all, we probably need to focus more on post-traumatic growth than post-traumatic failure. And we are never alone. And that's what the campaign is all about. And please check out #NeverAlone. And as he said, we probably don't need Tinder. We need more tender. So let us do that. Three things or pieces of life that he gave you to live your life essentially. attitude, belief, and choice. Those are the three things that we should always think about from a positive sense. And that's it. We don't need much else. Always try to be in service. The first step that you can take to make change happen within yourself and outside yourself. Follow the 6 pillars of well-being that he gave you to be well and be healthy. And please check out Gabble. We will put out a link as well for you to download the app and check it out. And as he suggested, please give, ask, borrow, and love. And we promise you, Poonacha, that we will never do late. This time we're actually going to do it in the present. And probably one last thing that you said is, hope says tomorrow is going to be better, and you and I have the power to do so. And on that note, I am probably towards the end of my conversation with you. And since I am a quiz master and I never run out of questions, hopefully one last question for you. That is, if you have to sum up your vision for a better world in one sentence, what would that be?
A world where no one should ever feel helpless or hopeless. That's it. And with that, maybe it'll lead to a peaceful, just, sustainable, and a joyful world.
Thank you so much, Poonacha, once again for joining us, and for everyone who is listening in and joining in. As Poonacha said, remember, for a world where no one is left behind, it has never been clearer that all of us have a role to play in order to bring about change. Whoever you are, no matter where you come from, every one of us can make a difference. Every action truly counts. Get involved. Attend the SDG Action Conclave 2020. Participate in the SDG quiz, help raise awareness about the goals, and connect with a global community of passionate volunteers. This Global Goals Week, let us all come together to spread the knowledge about people, planet, and our sustainable development goals. Thank you once again all for joining us. Follow us on Instagram at Youth Forum India for all the updates. And don't forget to join our next session. Once again, Poonacha, thank you so much for being here and talking to us. It was a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you, Kunal. Thank you, Ananya. Stay safe. Lots of love.